Okay, so for this video, what we're looking at is developing the cut sides of the square-based pyramid. So we've already covered the drawing of the square-based pyramid, the elevation plan, side view looking in from the left-hand side, side view looking in from the right-hand side. And we've imposed the cut, okay, in the previous drawing. And we also established the true shape. Okay, so by using the swivel point here and pulling the cut around onto the horizontal, bringing it down to plan, bringing the correlating points out to meet it. So what I'm going to do next is show how to develop the sides of the cut. Now there are two ways of doing this. So basically the first way is to use the top of the pyramid as, again, a swivel point, and establishing the true length of one of the sides, pulling it around, and then proceeding to impose the cut on the sides. So you develop the full sides first, and then you impose the cut. So that's what we're going to do first. The second method is to unfold each side from the plan and bring the points out to meet it. We'll do that on a second drawing, which will be a separate video. Okay, so the first method is to basically pull the points out from the top of the pyramid, and establish the sides. So the top of the pyramid is here, but what we have here, when we're looking at the elevation or in the side views, when we see the side here, we are not seeing a true length of each of these sides here. What we are seeing is, again, if you look at this in the same way as you would say a common rafter. Well, a common rafter would be what you would see in this instance as by way of the side here. So that side there is the true length of a common rafter. So if I put in place what you're seeing by way of this length here, from this point here to this point here, and it's the same on the other sides as well. So what you're seeing as a true length there in that instance is what would be equivalent to a common rafter. So the green broken line here, this length here, which would be, if it was a roof, a common rafter length, as distinct to a hip rafter length here. Okay, this here, this common rafter length, this green line, is this length here. The true length is this length here on the side, because you're looking in at 90 degrees to this green line. Now, what we want to establish is the true length of the hip here. Okay, the hip here, the equivalent to the hip with regards to the square-based pyramid. So in order to establish that, what I have to do is I have to pull this hip on plan around to the horizontal, Okay, so I'm going to establish my compass to the length of the hip on plan. So I get my compass, and I draw in, I pull that around, that length there, the hip length, or the side there of the square-based pyramid, pull it around onto the horizontal. Now, what I simply do then, I'm going to indicate this in red. So the continuation, see the green line here, the common rafter? Well, I'm going to put a red line just running alongside it, going out to meet this line here. Now I'm going to also show that curve where I brought it around with the compass. I'm going to use a French curve just to show that curve being brought around. Okay. Okay, so that's the compass, using this as a swivel, bringing the hip around onto the horizontal. But then what I have to do is I have to bring that point up to the elevation. So bring this point here now up to the elevation. Now, where that point hits the XY line, I then bring that line and I'll put it in as a hard red line here. So this distance here is a true length. That's a true length. True length line here. Okay, from here to here. Okay, that's a true length. So it's true length of, I'll put it in as hip, of hip. Okay, now what I do with that measurement now, in order to obviously draw it in the sides, I'm going to establish a point on the plan here. So I'm bringing this down here, this point here down to the top of the plan line here to establish this point here. Okay, now so if I put that in red, very simply I'm bringing this point down here to the top of the plan line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the true length of the hip. So that distance, and I'm going to put it on that point there. I'm bringing a vertical line down and I'm simply going to swing that around. Swing that around. Okay, now I'm starting with the vertical here, so I'm just going to bring that down here as a hard line there. Okay, now I then go to my plan and I establish the length of each side. So the length of each side of the plan here. That distance, okay? And I strike that off 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Now, what I have then is the other points on that arc. Okay? So from each of those points, I now bring to this point here. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to also now draw in the bottom, okay, of the pyramid here on the development. Okay, so all of the bottom sides I'm drawing in now. So as a development now, what I have here are the 4 sides of the pyramid. The 4 sides of the pyramid, okay, without imposing the cut on them at this stage. Now I'm also just going to draw in around 2 points, two important points that I have to also draw in. But before I draw those points in, I'm just going to index the pyramid, okay, for clarity's sake. So again, I will use blue to signify the indexing. So this is going to be point 1, I'll actually indicate the sides here, the bottom sides. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4. So this here is going to be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4, and then 1 falls in back on itself, so that's 0.1. Okay, now again, if I want to do this here, I can, by way of the cut, I can have again points, say A, points B, point C, and point D. Okay, now on this line here, this point here on elevation is point A, D. Okay, this point here on elevation is point B, C. Again, with regards to the end view here, the side view, I have points D and A, and point C and B. So that's my indexing done there. So what I'm going to do now is establish, okay, how do I impose the cut on this development of the sides? Well, again, if I go through the true shape line, okay, the true shape line, this line here, okay, if I bring the cuts, these cuts here, okay, the points of the cut, I should say, okay, if I bring them across, okay, so this here is the true length of this line here, okay. Now, this is where the cut is imposed on this point. So I want to bring this point here across to this point here as well, right? So what I'm going to do is BC, I bring across, okay, and AD, I also bring across, okay. Now I get two lengths for my compass now for the true length line here. So what I do is I simply get the first one, the BC one, off the true length there, okay, and I put it to the top of the development, and I pull that around. Now just check that again. So BC here, and I pull that around. Now I also then, true length line, go down to the next point here, AD, and I pull that around. Okay, now I'm going to just again use the I'm going to use the French curves just to show those curves being brought around. Okay, so I have again this distance on the true length line. I've brought BC across to it as a radius. I've swung that around from the top of the pyramid here in the development, and then points AD again as a radius on the true length. I've swung that around, okay, to establish that that radius here. Okay, so the next part of it is again, if I index, if I establish the points, okay, using very simply the points I've already got here. So this here is going to be points DA, or AD, and then this point here is going to be points BC. Okay, so one, if I correlate now, one, I have point A here, right? So that's going to be point A here. Then point 2, I have point B. So point B is going to be up here. So that's point A. I'll keep it in blue here. A. This is going to be point B. This, then the next one is going to be point C. So point C again here, number 3, point C. Next one then is going to be point 4, which is point D. Again, point D is on the lower one. Okay, that's point D. And then the last point, point 1, again, is point A. So that's going to be point A. Now, if I connect those points up, okay, so points A to B, B to C, C to D, and D to A. What you have here now is an imposition of the cut on the development of the sides. Now, I'm going to proceed to draw the rest in blue here. Okay, so each side. Now I'm only drawing in heavy what are the cut surfaces, okay, of the sides. Now, if I shade the cut surface in now, I simply shade it in using brown again. So what we have now is the shading in of the development of the cut sides of the square-based pyramid. So I'll just indicate that here. So all of these are a development so development of cut sides. Now that's one way of doing it. I'm going to show another way of doing it in the next video. So that's showing you again, this is the true length here. I've established here's a radius, springing point here, I've pulled it around, and then what I do is I get the length of the base here on plan, this distance here, okay, one of the sides on plan, and I strike that off 4 times. Okay, now I index it, so indexing here 1, 2, 3, 4, and the cut I've indexed is A, B, C and D. I've put those indexing here on the cut on elevation and side view. Now what I've simply done is I've used these 2 points here, AD and BC on the cut, brought them over to the true length line, okay, and I simply use that length off the true length line, BC here on the true length. I've then swung that arc around, okay, that's the establishment of where BC is going to be, and then this distance here, AD, brought over to the true length line, got my radius here off the true length line, and I swung this line around, using this as a spring point, swung this line around, and I've established where my points AD are going to be. So I correlate then the indexing. So I know point A is on 1 here, right? So 1, I've got A here, okay? Then I've got point 2. Point 2 has B, so point B is up here, right? Point 3 I've got here, and point 3 has C. C is up here. point 4 here, right? Point 4 is here, right? So D is on point 4, so I've got point D here, and then that comes back to point 1. Point 1 has point A, so A here again. So I connect here from A to B, B to C, C to D, D to A. That gives me the imposition of the cut on the development of the sides. Okay, so I hope you have found that useful. We will look at another way of doing it in the next video. Thank you.